Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming so much. As you know, I'm Vicki Miller, and most of the rest of our team is on the call here today. We are thrilled to have Pedro Rodriguez from Philly Counts here. But before I introduce him, I just want to tell you that Pedro will be taking questions. We welcome your questions, and you can do those through the chat box. So if you look, should be on the side, I think, of your screen. But if you look down at the bottom, there's a box labeled chat, and you can send in questions. Katie has already sent out an introductory chat or welcome chat to everyone. And so you can put in any of your questions. You'll be muted, so you can put in any of your questions into the chat box, and then we will answer them at the end after Pedro's presentation. All right? And if you have any questions at all, if for some reason you can't hear us or anything, you can send in a question through the chat and you will get it answered. All right. So I would like to introduce Pedro Rodriguez. He is the Director of Community Engagement and Partnerships at Philly Counts 2020. So Philly Counts is the city's effort to make sure that everybody is counted in Philadelphia for the census. And Pedro will explain why that's so important. It is critically important that everyone get counted. So we all need to be part of that effort however we can to tell everyone we know that they need to make sure that they and all of their friends and all of their family fill out their census. It's super easy. If you do it online, it's like a minute and a half. It really doesn't take hardly any time, and it's very easy. So, but I'm not going to fill up the time with my comments. Pedro is going to tell us all about that. So Pedro, if you could, take it away.
Thank you, Vicki, and then thanks for having me with you today. I'm going to give you a brief rundown of what the status is as of today. This keeps changing depending on the national circumstances. But I want to kind of put a frame for our conversation today for you to kind of grasp the importance of the census part on what we're facing today in the country. You saw what happened in Wisconsin yesterday. And I think having the participation of urban areas across the country being negatively impacted by the pandemic is sort of a beneficial perfect storm for the people who like to suppress voter participation and to gerrymander congressional seats. Not to speak of diminishing returns in federal program aid to cities across the country. In the city of Philadelphia, you're going to see we get $3.3 billion that is based totally on how many people live in the city as of 2010. Those figures are set after the census is done based on the total population. It's one of the reasons why the city of Philadelphia set up my office to make sure that people participate in the census so we can have an accurate and fair count of everybody who lives here, regardless of status. We were on track to do really a very decent job, and then this hit, and we had to shift everything that we were doing. And we had to shift everything that we were doing and try to, and then have to acknowledge what's going on. And then we have developed, as part of our campaign around the census, try to educate communities about COVID, how to respond, where to get assistance if they need it. Again, there's still a need because to have more people knowing specific reasons why the census is important to Philadelphia and the people who live in it. And having people with the right information is also key, because in the last 2 weeks, we've seen an increase of a lot of misinformation and disinformation. One of the things are people were posted online. If you participate in the census, you're not going to get your relief check. For the that was one of the things that was going on. question whether or not you should, if you have to choose one or the other. So we have to have people around the city equipped with the right information to kind of fight back on some of that misinformation. And you know, people are impacted emotionally, and rightly so, about what's going on. And then filling out the census form is the least of their concerns. So we had to address that on top of everything else. Mayor is still very much involved in the question of the census, and then you can see him every day doing updates on the pandemic in Philly. But this remains one of the top priorities for the administration. We're still doing social media stuff. These are our handles, hashtag Philly Counts and hashtag Census 2020. I'm gonna go briefly through about 6 of the sections. And before I begin on this one here, so you remember the big brouhaha last summer about the citizenship question. And we suspected why they wanted to have that question included in the census. And then documentation emerged about the playbook that the same people who were doing voter suppression across the country wanted to tag it into the census. So the main idea behind having this question on the census was to, one, depress participation by communities that are not U.S. citizens. And then two, even if you got people who are either green card holders or others who don't have documentation participate in the census, was for those people, they make the argument after the census that redistricting should be based only on those who are U.S. citizens, because they are the only ones who can vote. So imagine what would have done to places like California, Texas, New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Massachusetts, all of the up and down the East Coast, and places like Chicago and so on. The political balance of power will have shifted tremendously in favor of the area that are state that we call red state right now. Luckily, in Philadelphia was a party to the lawsuit. The courts decided to block the inclusion of the question on the census. Normally, the Census Bureau takes about 3 to 4 years to evaluate the inclusion or deletion of a question in the questionnaire. They have a whole process in which they debate whether or not a question should be included or removed or changed. They do a lot of testing. They do a lot of studies on how that should be included or not. The career people of the Census Bureau were arguing on the technical aspect that they didn't have enough time to evaluate the inclusion of that question. And they didn't want that to be that part of this 2020 census. We prevail, so that question is not longer in there, but the damage was done. A lot of communities got scared, and they're still scared. It's been a struggle in Philadelphia for some of us. Some of the communities, and they are basically 2 communities that have really difficulty coming around that issue. It's mostly the Mexican community and the Indonesian Catholics have had really kind of a harder time than other groups getting past the whole thing. And they have historical reasons why that's the way they feel. They've been targeted by immigration in the last few years, so that's a collective experience that they have. And then they have a very low trust in government. We have been able to work with a lot of community organizations and faith institutions in those communities to try to ameliorate that fear and that concern. So, you know, we had a census in 1790. It's in the Constitution. The Constitution says count all persons every 10 years. is the law to participate in the census, but the Census Bureau doesn't have any police powers, so nobody gets prosecuted for not filling out the census. Then the other side of the question is that all of the information cannot be shared with any other governmental agency, not federally, not locally, not state, not with the courts. So your information is confidential, it's protected, so how can they going to prosecute you when they cannot release your information? So luckily, I mean, the protections embedded within the Bureau of the Census are good enough for us to make an assurance to people that, you know, their information will be protected, regardless who's in the White House. Those of you who are my age or a little younger will remember that they used to have very thick document to fill out by hand. I remember my father telling me, "You're going to do this with the entire family." At that time we were 8, so I used to spend a couple of hours doing it. They did away with that. They only have the short form. Only has 9 questions, and that's it. It takes 10 minutes to finish. The information that used to be asked in the long form is now done every 2 years with a sampling of the population, and that is called the American Community Survey. That's where you get all the income information, the employment information, more detailed information about housing and so on. And to give an example, for Philadelphia, we have 1,483,000 people in the city. They actually only interviewed 68, 69 people to get the information for 1.83 million people, 1.583 million people, and you'd be surprised how accurate that is. And by the way, in that survey, they do ask the question about citizenship. And they can, in that data about how many people are not citizens who live in Philadelphia, that data is available. And that gives you an idea of that the administration was being facetious when they said that they needed to have that information for whatever reason, because they can get a more accurate information based on the American Community Survey. I mentioned that Philadelphia gets $3.3 billion a year based on that, and that was from the 2010 census. And then census data is also used for redistricting at the state level and for city council. City council has to read all the city council district maps every 10 years after the census information is available. Anybody knows how many persons every city council managed district has? Anybody? Any idea? It's supposed to be 160,000 people per council managed district. Legislative district, state rep district has about 57,000. And the senatorial district has about 2.5 times as many. And then business use the information on the census to make business decisions, and academia uses it for research and so on. One of the things that we have traditionally in Philadelphia is an undercount. An undercount is that people who live in some parts of the city are never counted. This is the technical term undercount. We call it communities are traditionally not counted. And their communities have been for decades not included on any of these official data. And that impacts their ability to get equity of resources for programs that are federally mandated, or for anybody, even with good intention, try to set up a program for communities. They go to census data and they don't have an accurate picture of who lives there. Therefore, a lot of the time, either it fails to meet the needs or is totally misguided. These are some of the programs that get relied on total count to get monies into the city. The SNAP, the food stamp program, Medicaid and Medicare, and then I'm going to tell this about Medicaid. The reimbursement rate for healthcare is set every 10 years after the census for metropolitan areas. For to give you a good example, you get an appendectomy in Minneapolis, and just let's say that the hospital we get $1,000 reimbursement for that from Medicare. And In Philadelphia, the same condition, the same procedure will get $1,400. It's just a question that we have more people in Philly than they are in Minneapolis. So there's an undercount, then the healthcare providers will be getting less, and they get stuck with that rate for 10 years. So that's important. Money for transportation infrastructure, the money to provide special education services in the public schools, and school lunches are also set by total population. Money for affordable housing programs, housing counseling, and Pell Grants. The size of the Pell Grants is based on the total population count. Okay. This was the original timeline for the Census Bureau. We already had April 1st, which was the National Symbolic Census Day, but actually people started getting the information on March 12th to invitation to respond to this census. And this whole thing, group quarters, which was supposed to have started in February and go all the way through the end of April, has been suspended. And group quarters include college campuses. Everybody who lives in the dorms is supposed to be counted there. Nursing homes, prisons, homeless population count, military facilities, group homes. We have many group homes in Philadelphia. Assisted living facilities. I think I'm missing a couple of them. But all of that has been suspended because it used to be a combination of institution giving the Census Bureau a data dump of everybody who was there, or having the Census Bureau census taker come into the facility and do the actual enumeration on site. As you can imagine, the problem for nursing home right now is just, that's unthinkable. That's not going to happen. The door knocking, which is service-based enumeration, has been suspended as well, and that was supposed to start next week. We're not sure when that's going to happen. And then the non-response follow-up, that has been moved up all the way to August 14, which also the self-response rate has been moved all the way there. Everything should be wrapped up by December 31st, but there are calls now by advocates, see if we can extend the whole census process until early in 2021. There are 4 ways to participate, but right now there are only 3 ways that count. It's responsive by online, by telephone, and by mail. We have been doing, for the last 2 weeks, phone banking to the areas of the city where they have a traditionally low response rate. And the people that we talk to, even those who have access to the internet, have mailed the responses. There's a lag on processing the responses because their operations of the Census Bureau have been impacted by the pandemic as well. They don't have as many people processing the mail. Mail that goes to any federal facility, like the Census Bureau, has to be screened for hazardous substances. So that delays a little bit. So right now, Philadelphia is lagging behind the state and the national average on self-response rate, with about 10 points for the state and about 9 points for the national average, with about 36% now. And even places like, I was just looking this morning, places like Chestnut Hill, even there is lagging behind at the self-response rate. And then we have places around colleges and universities where everybody had left. Even the people who lived off campus had left the city. We have one specific census tract where the self-response rate there is about 4.6%, which is really dragging down our citywide totals. People going online, they can have 12 languages to be able to do it from there. And if you go by phone, there are now 59 languages. This is what the invitation looks like. I don't know if all of you have received that. You raise your hand if you received that. In the envelope, there comes a unique code that is attached to your address. Um, People who live in multi-dwelling facility apartments or buildings, some of them have had difficulties because the apartments were not correct. So they had to do it without the unique code you can do. These are the total questions that are included. We have talking to people over the phone in the past 2 weeks. There are some questions that people told us they had difficulties with. And they always ask whether they can skip a question, and the answer is yes. You can skip question. Either you can still submit online if you skip a question, or when you mail it, it's still going to be counted, even if you skip questions. Everyone is encouraged to fill everything out, but if you don't have all the questions again, the Census Bureau has said that they will follow up with people who miss questions, but we don't know if that's going to be happening now, but that's always a possibility. The citizenship question is not going to be there. So that's out, but still, again, people still think that it's in there. On data security, the data is secure, the responses are confidential, and they're legal protected by the Constitution. Again, we try to emphasize this whole issue that that stuff cannot be shared with anybody else. Now, the individual information is eventually made public. It's the 72-year rule. So the 2020 census information for each individual will be released in the year 2092. I don't know about you, but I'm planning to be dead by then. I actually really planning to be, I don't want to be around that. So I'm not concerned with that stuff. And then when you tell people that, they kind of, their concern begin to lower. Only Census Bureau people have access to the information, and the sworn federal officers to keep that stuff confidential. This is what the census taker will look like when eventually get to that point. When the door knockers go to a house, they will be able to enter all the data on their laptop, and then automatically gets uploaded instantly to the Census Bureau servers. So that information gets added up. They don't have to go back to the office and enter any of that stuff anymore. That was 10 years ago. That's the way they were doing it. Not anymore. We have a couple of instances in Philadelphia, people knocking on door and saying that census taker asking for money, and then asking for people to hand over to them the completed census form if they had it. We trying to sound the alarm. We knew with the areas of the city that we're doing that. People can call 311 or call 911 to call the police. In the census questionnaire, there's no information about Social Security and no information asked about financial stuff. So this is how everybody gets counted. These are the group quotas, which I think has been suspended. The other facility I mentioned with mental hospitals. We are now, you should know, we're now having conversation with all of the colleges and university, asking them to give us the data dump for everybody who live in the dorms and the data they have for people who live off campus. So that information can be given to the Census Bureau and give a more accurate reflection of who was in Philadelphia when the census began, even if they are now in other places. We had some volunteers making phone calls from California, and they told us that their parents put them in their census form in California. The Census Bureau will readjust those individuals because they live on campus here, and then they can eliminate duplicates. The only problem is that when a parent fills out the form and includes an individual who is school age, it has a question saying, was that person a college student? And then you say yes. It doesn't ask where. So we have a couple of challenges around that. The good news is that a couple of the colleges are already saying that they're willing to and prepared to give the Census Bureau all of that information, so that will aid in the total number for Philadelphia. To give you an idea, For example, I know for LaSalle has 3,900 undergrads, and all the students, they only here for this year, and the next couple of years, they will add to Philadelphia's benefit about $8 million a year for the 10 years, which is a total about $81 million. Just having just one institution will bring that much money in the decade. So that's how important they are to us. So people who are locked up, they get counted where they go to school. I mean, where they're locked up. So we have a lot of people who are upstate Pennsylvania. So from Philly, so all those people are going to be counted over there. There is a movement going around the state to have those people be counted where they come from, because when they get released from jail, they come back here, we're the ones providing services to them, and yet we don't get the benefits, either politically or financially, for them being counted where the benefits are being provided to them. We held a prison gerrymandering workshop in early March, which is the coalescing of that campaign to help that. This will help with redistricting a lot. We lose a big chunk of people. We're talking maybe about one or two legislative seats for Philadelphia from the state assembly, or Pennsylvania suddenly might lose one congressional seat, so we don't have an accurate count. The other problem that we have had historically is that families do not count children under 5. For some reason, we don't know why. We had a campaign going on, and then that's been a little bit slow picking up on the digital side now. But this is another matter of concern for us. In 2010, 3,000 children were not counted in Philadelphia, and we lost $63 million because of that. People who are not citizens should respond, green card holders, people who are on tourist visa, who are living here, people going to school here, international students get counted, people who don't have any document, they should be counted. We are now having conversations with the Census Bureau on how we can provide them with documentation of people that were providing homeless services on April 1st of this year. We have a number of organizations, nonprofits, and faith organizations, plus the city that provide services, and we have some numbers for that. The Census Bureau was going to do at the end of March 2 days of going around places where people sleep overnight to do a count there with a bunch of other organizations. So obviously that's been suspended. We don't know when that's going to be resuming. This is a community most likely not to be counted. Children under 5, people of color, immigrant community, low-income communities. You're talking about the people who are most directly impacted by COVID-19. It's the same group that doesn't get counted. It's about 1/3 of the people who live in Philadelphia, which is almost 120,000 people. Every person not counted means that we lose $2,100 per year per person. That's $21,000 for the 10 years. We talk about that the census for the first time is using online submission. About 98% of all the responses so far has been online. Again, I think there are more people who responded, but we don't have that tabulation yet because they had to be processed from the mail responses. We are providing help. The 311 is a place where people can be directed to get support in the Census Bureau as much. So this is one of the areas where people can get involved and try, even in the middle of the pandemic, to try to get people interested on paying a little attention, and people have some time. We're trying to make suggestions about people make this a family time to get all the family and pick a time, do it at home. Now everybody's together, do it that way. Social media is important at this point. The phone banking is important. We have an app that people can download called Fatsumo. It's function like Duolingo, do a lot of quizzes, and then tells you how much you know, and then it teaches you and instructs you about the correct information about that. People are having fun with that. We had done Census Jeopardy games and Census Bingo days that we have online if the organization wanted to do that to try to get the word out. Even despite all of this, the Census Bureau is still hiring. They're taking applications in. We don't know when they're going to onboard those people that they make job offers, because all of that's still in limbo. This is where people can go for help and more information, both by calling 311. Our website was Philly Count, Philly.gov Census in the Census Bureau. We still have people that prefer a lot of printed materials in Philadelphia, and that has been a struggle. We've been calling a couple of senior citizen residencies, and then people are locked up in their home. The social worker are not getting to work every day, and then when they do, they don't have a lot of physical contact with people. There's a lot of, rightfully so, a lot of isolation going on, and then keeping everybody's distance. So trying to get people to get their mail, get materials, that has been difficult. The digital seems to be more successful, reaching out millennials and others who have access to digital material, access to the internet. For Philadelphia, it's a huge problem because 30% of all our houses don't have access to the internet. So it's hard for them either to try to do it online if they wanted to, they just don't have the access to it, or they don't have a smartphone that can actually work on trying to upload the information. So we're trying to kind of encourage those individuals to do it by mail, but again, that's also a challenge. Again, the seniors prefer to, and, you know, we have plans, and in a lot of the senior centers and in other organizations dealing with seniors in Philly, we're trying to set up space and computer for the senior to go to the senior center and do it there. So all of that is up on limbo right now. We had 19 subcommittees that we had set up on the Complete Count Committee for Philadelphia that was chaired by the mayor. Some of those committees continue to function. They're meeting virtually, trying to shift to doing more telephoning and online communications with their constituency to try to keep the momentum going and try to engage people and also recruit people to do a specific outreach. There are some beautiful videos that's been developed with Philly Cam and some of the organization, the African group itself with Philly, a couple of Latino organizations. They have developed a bunch of really nice videos, encourage people to do the census. All of that stuff is online on our website for the city. Again, we emphasize the $21,000 a year for that, for every person, $21,000 for the decade, every person not counted, and how that's impact to it. So next step is that we are recruiting a lot of people to do phone banking. We need help with that. We're recruiting people to do amplification of our message on social media. And we're going to be also recruiting people to do phone texting. We had databases of people who say it's okay to send in text. And we're going to be moving into that, making that available for people who are not comfortable doing the phone banking. All right, so you basically, all of you are now census champion. So I'm going to stop there and then take questions. Okay, so people can ask the question by voice or.
This is, who decides if they're going to extend the date? Do you know?
That's the so the Census Bureau, the director of the census in Washington, we make that decision. They already make they extended a couple of things. They have made some decisions already. So the big ones are yet to be made. At the local level, the regional level, we have a regional office in Philadelphia that's responsible for about 7 states. And they can make some regional decisions. For example, the decisions about the college students, how to count them, that could be locally done. We're working with them to try to figure out how they can meet the population halfway based on the circumstances going on in the city right now. Good question. Now, there is a role for advocacy because a lot of the national groups that are being advocating for a complete and accurate count through the census have been also trying to sound the alarm. Hey, we need more time. This really impacted negatively the participation nationally, especially in the cities. I mean, can you imagine New York City? So we need more time to make sure that we have an accurate, complete count.
Do they have a mechanism to judge accuracy? Like, you would expect Philadelphia's population to, have been X. So if all of a sudden our population is now 500,000 instead of, 1.5 million, do they have any of those kinds of checks of data quality, do you know?
So the answer is yes. There's more accurate data that you can derive from the census to arrive at total population.
Yeah.
And the Census Bureau uses all those cross tabs for databases to develop the mailing that goes out to every household in the city. But sometimes there are mistakes in that. In our phone banking, we found a lot of people who did not receive their census mailer, and we're keeping track of that. We're taking that notes of that. We need to have a lot of evidence about that in case we need to go to court to try to readjust the count. So there is a lot of good data about the exact number of the population in the city of Philadelphia. But we cannot use that, and by law, we cannot use that to do either redistricting or to demand the federal aid that comes based on total count.
Is there a way, if a particular residence has not been counted and they're not answering the phone or answering the door, I thought I had read that that then the census taker can ask a neighbor, or that there's some way for an estimate to be done. Is that true?
Yes. In normal circumstances, when the person does not respond to the invitation to participate in the census, either by email, by internet, by phone, or by mail, that's when the door knockers get sent out. They only go and knock on the doors of the people who do not respond. If they make 3 tries to knock on somebody's door, and if that fails, then they go and ask the next door neighbor about, hey, who lives there, how many children, who are they, that kind of information. If that fails, they do an estimate. When they do the estimate, we lose. One of my neighbors, my friend Jimmy, there's 5 people in his house. His wife, 2 children, and his mother-in-law. So if he doesn't respond, he doesn't fill out the census, his estimate will be half of the actual size of his household, because the estimate is based on the average of the group that most likely to respond to the census, which is mostly white households, and they happen to be much less than the households of immigrant communities, people of color communities, low-income communities. So usually they get cut in half. I have another friend who they have 11 people in his house. Imagine he doesn't fill it out, he'd be counted as 2.43. So we begin to lose, and that stuff adds up rather quickly. So we're not only losing the money, we're also losing the political representation, because those communities then don't get a more direct either state legislator or state senator or city council person who can truly represent that community.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm on the phone. I'm not sure. Am I being heard?
Yeah, you are heard. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Pedro. My name's Jim. In the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned, I think, two groups that were particularly scared off by the whole citizen controversy, trying to put that question on the census. And I think you mentioned the first group being Mexican heritage people. And correct me if I'm wrong. In the second group, though, I didn't hear. I couldn't quite hear what the second group was. If I'm correct, you said what
Indonesian Catholics who mostly live in South Philadelphia.
Indonesian Catholics. I thought you said Catholics, but
Indonesian Catholics. Yeah.
In South Philadelphia. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Indonesian Muslim, for some reason, they don't have that much of a problem with that question, so they seem to be engaging more. But the Catholic groups of Indonesian kind of being really, really shy for very good reason. They were targeted by ICE, and they had raids and people were arrested and deported. So their concerns are really valid. And, you know, we try to work with some of the Catholic churches in South Philly to kind of see if they can serve as reassurance institution that say that this is okay to do. But it's been an uphill battle.
Wow. So Mexican heritage and Indonesian Catholics.
Right. So with the Mexican community, we began to make some inroads, and we're planning a bunch of activities actually this month with the Mexican Cultural Center, a couple of the big Mexican Catholic churches there, a couple of the businesses in South Philly, but we had to kind of suspend all of that.
Right. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any ability to leverage texting to help get out the word? You know, I know you mentioned the challenges with internet, but I would hope that there might be an ability to reach people by text.
Yeah, one of our partners is called Keystone Count, which is a statewide group promoting census participation. And on April 1st, they send out about 66,000 text messages around the state, including Philadelphia. We're going to be working with them to do a more targeted texting campaign here in Philly. So we are, we're going to also put in a call for people who wants to volunteer to do texting with us, to do that in the next few weeks.
Regarding some of the statistics or the figures that you mentioned around the impact of falling short in the count, like you said, like that household of 11 people only counting 2.43 or whatever it was.
Right.
Are there any, infographics or anything like that that's really catching that like we could share out to our membership or to other partner groups that really, would just grab people's attention to say, 10 minutes of your time is worth so many thousands or tens of thousands of dollars to the city in assistance. I'd like to think that might jar people into responding.
Yeah, the answer to that is yes, we do have, and I can share that with Vicky so she can send out to the
that'd be great.
To the group.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's just incredible because this is it's in everybody's most selfish interest to participate, but it's been people have been there have been such active campaigns to discourage people from participating. And I mean, do you feel like there is still, you talked a little bit about some people who are, trying to use this to commit fraud and some other things, which seems like it's more maybe financially motivated, posing as census takers and things like that. But do you feel like there is, Vicky kind of hinted at this at the beginning of like, what if we're not able, we feel like we know, or no, Sandy's question, if we know this count is clearly wrong, and like who would have the ultimate authority to make the call about, you referenced a lawsuit or something to say there's been, we know that we are being misrepresented and undercounted, and who would be in the position to actually take that on if it gets to that point.
So if we get to 2021 and we get the final result and we see that we, severely unaccounted, we can request to the Census Bureau for readjustment on a nice way. If that doesn't work, then we can go to court to try to do that. And that's one of the reasons why the phone banking is really important, because we're documenting. People say, hey, I never got this stuff. So that's why it's important. We keep a notes section, and every day we send out that batch of did not receive to the Census Bureau and say, look, these people say they did not receive. And you trust the people that they say, I didn't get it. I would have known it. And, you told the people, no, I didn't get it. And then people would say, yeah, I got it. It's on my desk. I haven't taken a look at it. And they would tell you that. So, so today I had a conversation with a young woman, and then she said, no, I didn't get it. And I said, I can text you the links. You can do it online. And she said, no, not interested. And I say, yeah, but this is important. I tried to do my spiel, and she said, yeah, thank you very much. Bye. But about 10 minutes later, she called me up and said, how do I do the census stuff? And then apparently she thought about it. And then I said, you can do it online. She said, but I don't live with my parents. I live with myself. Yeah, where you live now, that's where you count. So I texted her the link to go and do it. And also texted her if you want to volunteer, this is the information for you to do, and then email me. And then she said, yeah, I can be willing to do phone calls.
That's fabulous.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but sometimes it takes sometimes people say, I don't want to be bothered with that. So
You flipped it from disinterested to volunteering.
Yeah, and then millennials are the worst. Surprisingly, I mean, not surprising. Yeah, no, I don't know about that stuff. So that happens, and then so we have the day before yesterday, I spoke to a senior who lives in the Pavilion Apartments by City Line Avenue, 3109 Conshohocken Avenue. It's about 280 units of senior citizens who live there. It's affordable housing building, and say, I didn't get it, but it's possible that I got it but I haven't been, in 2 weeks, I haven't been to my mailbox because I don't go out of my apartment. I want to do it. How can I do it? I can't do it on the internet because I don't know how to do that. The guy said, I'm 88 years old. So I took his information and I'm trying to get a hold of the social worker of the building to try to figure out a way safely that they can get information to this gentleman. But those are the challenges that we have now. In normal circumstances, we would have sent a census ticket over there, parked the person at the lobby or the community room, and tell everybody in the building, come down and we'll do it together. So I recruited one person who lives there who's going to make phone calls for that building only. So I'm doing a phone bank for that building only, so she can call around everybody that she knows and be, hey, I'm Agnes, I live in this apartment, and let's do it.
Wow. It's just gotten so much more complicated because of the pandemic. It's incalculable. Wow.
Okay.
Oh man, well, thank you. So and you know what, Pedro, if you can send me more of the dates of the next phone banking opportunities as well, so I can put those out too.
Yeah. So we're doing,
put them on social media and put them in the newsletter.
We are doing every day between 3 and 5. We do a phone bank every day. And we targeting the areas that have the lowest response so far going on. That Ward 52 by Citizen Avenue, by San Jose, Citizen Avenue, and Winfield. That's one of the areas that we're concerned about. Then we have the areas of the Latino community in Kensington and Upper Kensington and Fair Hill. We're doing those areas, which are by zip code 10122, 10133. We're beginning around Penn, which is another area that has very, very low return rate so far in West Philly. And we're going to be starting another one in part of the Northeast and Northwest. So we have different areas around the city, but any phone call will help. We want to do 1,000 calls per day. We're getting, dependence on the day, we get close to there on how many people are calling. Then we also started combining COVID, kind of checking up on people and families, because families are running out of food, and we want to make sure that we give the information the where to go to pick up food if they need it, or if they have any other issue that we can kind of flag that, and then we send that to the other units within the city that are doing a lot of that, and some of the nonprofit groups that are helping people out. So we combining that, so it makes the call a little longer. Than I can do probably 100 calls in 45 minutes, but then now I only get to do maybe 30 or 40, because it's a more longer conversation when you're talking to people.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, we will definitely put that out there. I put the more limited link out there, but I think you sent me the link for everything, right?
Yeah, and if you are with Indivisible, you don't have to be vetted. People who volunteer to make phone call, we have to check them out first. We don't get any crazy people making calls.
Vicky, did you say you have their social media accounts, the links?
No, I had links for the phone, to sign up for the phone banking, but
but I can send you the social media toolkit that we have.
Right.
Okay.
We update every week.
Accounts that we can follow to then reshare from our account, that's super easy and quick for us to do.
Yeah, Philly, the hashtag Philly counts. That's
okay.
That's, we put in a lot of stuff in there, and people can also follow that and then amplify. Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
I have a phone banking question.
Sure.
Or in order to phone bank, or do you volunteer and go? Well, I guess in COVID times, I don't know if this makes any sense, but my bottom line question is: can you just phone bank from home? Get a bunch of numbers and phone bank?
Yes, everybody's phone banking from home.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Thanks.
You need to have access to a computer because we're using Van. I think you're familiar using Van, right?
Right.
So yeah, we're using the Van. It's an open phone bank from Van. We just send you the link and you start making calls.
Right.
And then
I guess you can.
We have a script there, so you follow the script.
Right. So can you use a minivan from a computer?
Yeah, and also from the cell phone, you can use a minivan from a cell phone too.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Great.
Actually,
great
using from the phone, you don't have to dial the number. You can just click and dial it for you.
Right. Well, my phone is slightly challenged, so if I'm at home and doing it on the computer, it's a little better. I have to upgrade my phone, but it's great information, Pedro. Thanks very much for all of it.
Yeah, and if people do not want their phone number to appear on the call, you can get a Google Voice account. That way you get that number to be the one that shows up.
Okay. Interesting.
I put my personal phone number and people call me back, and then people are really super nice. We get very few hangups. Normally when you do a phone bank, you get about 8 to 10% contact rate. We getting 20, 21%. Yesterday we got 30%.
Wow.
It's
that was
huge.
My next question. You're getting 30% or so, 20 to 30% of actually getting through and people picking up the phone and answering
and talking to you. Yeah.
Huh.
It's incredible.
That's pretty good.
It is.
I attribute that people are locked up with their families, so for themselves, they're just happy to hear somebody else is different.
Right. Well, what is do you have any idea of your phone numbers, or which ones are landlines that you're calling, which ones are cells?
I could tell because I've been doing phone banking in Philly for years, so I know which area of the city what the first 3 digits. But you asked the person, I see a lot of, outside 215, 267, so that's a cell number if it's like 404, 513, 202, whatever. That's a cell number. But then I usually ask the person, can you get text messages on this phone? Actually, I talked to a lady that I needed to send it stuff, and she say, no, this is my landline. Send it to my cell phone number. And she gave me the cell phone number to send it a text.
Okay, so your impression of landline versus cell phone is kind of dependent on the area code, whether it's a local Philly area code, pretty much.
It's if I see a number that starts with 423, that's a landline. 666, yeah. It's just an institutional memory I have about doing phone banking in Philly for a long time. Okay,
interesting. Just wondering. Because if you were getting lots of landlines, so some people, if you get the seniors that are more apt to be picking up landlines, then maybe that would explain part of it. But I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
You'd be surprised how many seniors have cell phones, smartphones these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am surprised. I've been surprised about it. Yeah. Oh, you have a cell phone? Yeah, really? And say, yeah.
Good.
All right. So does anybody have any other questions at all? Pedro, this was wonderful.
This was really informative. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
Really good. Really informative.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, all right, thank you for being active.
We're trying.
All right.
Yeah.
We're trying just like everybody else. All right. Thank you, Pedro.
All right. Take care.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you all for coming.